Welcome to the CCCTI Introduction to Business Chapter 5 Update. I'm Rip Taggart. In this podcast, we'll focus on increasing your ownership of the different ways to organize a business. But first, some breaking news updates since the textbook was published in 2006. According to the most recent statistics on business ownership, sole proprietorships now total more than 75% of all U.S. businesses. However, their share of total revenue has slipped to 4%. With an average revenue of only $66,000, and that's revenue, not profit. Partnerships continue steady at about 8% of all businesses, and corporations are now generating 84% of all business revenue, with only 16% of the organizations. In other news, while overall merger and acquisition activity has decreased over the last several years, blockbuster deals are still making headlines and are typically announced on Merger Monday. Just last Monday, Kraft Foods announced its $16.7 billion hostile takeover offer for British chocolate maker Cadbury. 7 days earlier, the Disney company announced the friendly acquisition of Marvel Comics for $4 billion. This will give Disney access and control of the popular Marvel comic characters. A rumor that Hannah Montana will be joining the X-Men is still unconfirmed. Now it's time for our 5 to Focus On segment, highlighting 5 of the key ideas and concepts from Chapter 5. The segment doesn't cover everything you need to know for success in business or on the test. But if you don't know and understand these 5 things, you're not getting your money's worth. First, focus on understanding the differences and the advantages and disadvantages of the 3 basic forms of ownership: sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. The first 14 pages of Chapter 5 really cover this well. As a business grows from one person with an idea to a large organization with lots of products, markets, or employees, the differences in liability, tax status, and sharing profits and control could make each of these forms of ownership the right choice for an entrepreneur at a certain point. There's some memorizing to do here, but if you really understand the basics of the chart on page 131, you're off to a great start. Second, the Limited Liability Corporation, or LLC, which is covered on pages 130 and 131. An LLC is a popular and flexible form of business ownership because it combines a number of the advantages of other forms of business ownership. If you really understand the reasons why more and more businesses are organizing as LLCs when they can, and the reasons why they might not, that should help you keep this alphabet soup of business ownership information straight. Third, mergers and acquisitions, where rather than starting or expanding a business internally, an entrepreneur achieves growth by either merging their business with someone else's and sharing it, or by purchasing the other business, acquiring it for cash or stock in their business. In this economy, with some stock prices down and challenging business conditions, companies that have cash or the ability to borrow are looking at their competitors and other companies for bargains and growth opportunities. And if you've always been curious what leveraged buyout really means, you'll find it on page 133. With enough leverage, you could acquire your own Fortune 500 company. Fourth, franchises, which aren't really a form of business ownership, but rather an agreement between 2 parties, selling the rights to use a business name and sell its products or services in a given territory. Franchising can be a great way for someone with a great business idea or product to expand rapidly, or for someone who wants to start a business to lower their risk and take advantage of a proven product or business system. But before you invest your life savings in that franchise opportunity you see on late-night television, you need to take a close look at the 8-page section starting on 134. Finally, the chapter closes with a 1-page discussion of the last form of ownership, the cooperative. A cooperative is owned and controlled by the people who use it, producers, consumers, or workers, for the benefit of the members of the cooperative rather than for the benefit of shareholders. The electricity in Caldwell County is provided by a cooperative, Blue Ridge EMC. And when I was in East Africa this spring, I had a chance to visit agricultural cooperatives that have made a huge difference in the lives of subsistence farmers in their communities. And as you're thinking about all these forms of business ownership, keep in mind that they all exist in other countries too, and ownership is crossing borders more and more frequently. Well, now it's time for my take it or leave it. And in the 30 years I've been working, I've had experience in almost all of these forms of business ownership. I've been a sole proprietor and a partner in a small business doing multimedia development and consulting. I've worked and managed in small and large corporations from Buster Brown to IBM. I haven't actually worked in a cooperative, but I did spend 6 months working for the #1 franchise organization in the world, cooking fries and flipping burgers. Whether you're looking to start your own business or pick the business or organization you want to work for or invest your money, it's important to understand how they're organized and where the control, the risk, and the money ends up. And on the lighter side, an update on an entrepreneur featured in Chapter 5, Cake Love's Warren Brown. Cake Love, which is organized as an LLC, has now grown to 6 Cake Love Bakery locations in Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., plus a D.C. neighborhood restaurant called The Love Cafe. And while Warren's Sugar Rush show on the Food Network is not making new episodes, Warren can now be seen in new ad campaigns for Dell and the American Express card. Warren says he uses his American Express card to help create his confections. I wonder if any of his special Cake Love chip cupcakes will have Intel inside. Well, for more information or to test your understanding of Chapter 5, check out the Understanding Business textbook website at www.mhhe.com/UB80. The interactive quiz on this site is a quick way to see if you're ready for the next test. And if you're already thinking about starting your own business, another great business information resource is the U.S. Small Business Administration's website at www.sba.gov. In class news, the first test must be completed by Monday the 14th at midnight. 45 multiple choice questions, open book, and it's timed. Check the class announcements for more information on that. This week's class chat will be this Thursday the 17th at 3, and the first homework assignment is due on Friday the 18th. Our next chapter update podcast deals with entrepreneurship and starting a small business. Well, thanks for joining me for this Intro to Business update. I'm Rip Taggart, and we now return you to your life already in progress.